There is power in silence. When you can stand in the quietude and just be, it increases your authority. Welcome to the Foster Your Voice podcast with me, Kristi Foster. After a 30-year career in music and theater, I never imagined I'd be coaching trial attorneys. But once I entered your world, I quickly realized how critical and underutilized voice is in the courtroom. The truth is, you don't win trials with brute strength. You win with your voice. I'll give you tools to unlock your voice so you can communicate not just with purpose, but on purpose. If you want quick action tips to help you stay calm and in control, keep jurors engaged, and inspire your listeners to action, all through the power of your voice, you're in the right place. I'm Kristi Foster, and I'm here to help you foster your voice. Hello, Foster fam. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Foster Your Voice podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Kristi Foster, and welcome to springtime. We are in full ramp up here in the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful sunshiny days. We're starting to get into the 70s. Still cool at night, but I'm seeing flowers start to bloom, and just a little cheat code. I'm not ashamed to admit that I have fake flowers on my patio in my garden. I just can't seem to keep things alive on my patio. So last year I decided, I want beautiful things year round. So why am I struggling with this? So I went ahead and just bit the bullet and put some fake flowers in. But now I have lovely spring flowers right as we're coming into season. So I thought I had a green thumb, but apparently it's a black thumb. Not so good at keeping plants alive. How are you at keeping plants alive? And do you have springtime, summertime gardens? I'd love to see pictures. So send me a pic of your gardening efforts. Or if you have colossal failures, love to see those as well. So send me an email at kristi@fostervoicestudio.com or find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I want to see your pictures. Now, I've noticed for quite some time something that wasn't being talked about when I was growing up, but that has now, thankfully, become more a part of mainstream talking points, and that is mental health and neurodiversity. I'm so grateful that we're now talking about it, right? I think back to some of the kids that I had in classes with me during my school age years and how they would have been really helped if only people were looking at neurodiversity and not trying to just standardize everything. Now, the truth is that everyone learns differently. They listen differently. They process differently. I have a number of educator friends who I know are tirelessly and largely without administrative support or funding, they are working to diversify learning models and practicum to just better serve the diverse classroom of students. Now, why I'm calling this out to you is that neurodiverse students grow to be neurodiverse adults, and those adults are being called to jury duty. And as a trial attorney, I think it's unwise to not consider this when you're crafting your opening, planning for voir dire, and strategizing your key points throughout the course of trial. Like I said, I think the discussion and the resources have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go, and we all need to do our part to help every juror feel equipped to participate in the justice process. So I'm always grateful when I come across some helpful, practical tools that can get employed right away. Things that are actionable and lead to more inclusion and more accessibility. So today I want to share with you a mnemonic device for a framework that I learned from Josh at Rewrite. That's RE-RIGHT, Rewrite. He is an AuDHD digital creator. Now, just a side note, I wasn't familiar with the term AuDHD, A-U-D-H-D. It's newer to me, and I was pleased to learn it, and it refers to someone who is both autistic and has ADHD. So it's a combined acronym, AuDHD. Maybe that was new to you as well. So here is the framework that he recommends for creating more successful learning environments for folks like himself. It's CLEAR, C-L-E-A-R. Now, it's only a little confusing because in my sphere, I also have a framework called CLEAR that uses the letters as an acronym to reframe mindset. So let's just know between us that there are two different but related frameworks referred to as CLEAR. Mine is about reframing your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and Josh from Rewrite's framework is about helping neurodiverse people. So let's take a closer look at his. C is for concrete. Say the actual task. Say exactly what they are to do, what the end will look like, and be as direct about it as possible. Wishy-washy, open-ended, assuming they'll fill in the gaps type of instructions will backfire on you and set them up for failure. So concrete, that's the C. L is less at once. You've heard me talk about this before. This is a tricky one because juror instructions go on and on. And I'm telling you now, most people, regardless of how they experience neurodiversity, they reach their cognitive load long before the instructions are done. You may not be able to directly affect jury instructions, but you can affect how you organize your teaching points, how you streamline the information, how concise and clear you can be with your outline, and pausing frequently to allow for processing so they don't reach cognitive fatigue during your presentation. Remember, clarity isn't just about what you say. It's about how much you ask them to hold at once. So less at once. E is for explicit. Now, the example that Josh gives is not couching your directives in the form of a question. What are your thoughts on, or is there value in exploring? Just say it straight out. I think we should do X, then Y, and then circle back for Z. Now, don't get confused here. This isn't when you're asking questions in jury selection. At that point, you're seeking information. This is for when you're sending information. Try this with your team or with your staff and just know the directive and say it explicitly. CLE. A is for allow processing time. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The pauses and the silences you provide are critical. Not only that, but they are action-packed. You might not be doing anything but breathing, which you should be doing, but jurors are processing. If they've gone silent, don't just assume that they need you to re-ask the question. More likely than not, they're just processing it. They heard you the first time, and now they need a minute to assimilate, to translate, to relate, and form their response. So give that to them. I know the silences feel like an eternity to you, but you have to just trust that they are not being difficult and just get comfortable in the quietude. If you want a refresher, go back to episode 63 called What Jurors Actually Think When You Pause. And we're going to talk about that more in just a minute because this skill alone will change how you're perceived in the courtroom. And finally, we have R. That's recap. Give some good summary statements. You gave, or you should have given, some context statements at the start of sections, just so they have some kind of roadmap for the case and how to be thinking about it, some guidance. But then Give them some good recaps to assimilate all they heard and make sure there aren't any gaps in how the bits of information relate to each other. Now, if you're thinking, I wouldn't necessarily identify myself as neurodiverse, but those things sound helpful to me too, I'd say, yeah. Turns out, regardless of learning styles, regardless of if you identify as an autistic person or have diagnosed ADHD, these are just good teaching and leadership tactics. These aren't just accommodations. They're effective communication strategies. And when you communicate this way, you don't just present your case, you make it accessible. I'd love to hear from you if any of these stand out as particularly helpful or something that you're going to try implementing. Please let me know. Let's all keep doing better at learning about neurodiversity and equipping all of our jurors to be successful in the courtroom and beyond. Hey, real quick, if your jurors look confused when you say liability, standard of care, or damages, they're not tuning out because they don't care. They're tuning out because they don't speak law. I've put together a free guide called Top 20 Legal Terms to Avoid and What to Say Instead. It'll help you simplify your language without losing credibility, so your message actually lands. Download it now at fostervoicestudio.com/top20 or click the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. Okay, I've got some questions for you. How long can you sit in silence? Do you ever just do this? Just sit, do nothing, say nothing? Just allow yourself to be in a silent moment. Is it comfortable for you? Or are you someone that needs to have music on or a podcast playing in the background or an audiobook in your ear at all times? Now, how about when you're with other people or even just one other person? How do you do with silence then? Does it change for you? Can you comfortably just share space with someone without exchanging words or making any kind of conversation? Who is the first to say something? Is it you? Or can you wait until the other person breaks the ice? It'd be a worthwhile experiment for you. Test it out. Next time you get in your car, can you try driving in silence while making your commute or running your errands? What do you think will happen? Now, I'm not advocating for you to cut out all social interactions or eliminate music or podcasts. Obviously, I want you listening to my podcast, but I'm simply saying that if you have discomfort when you test it out, it would behoove you, I love that word, it would behoove you to challenge yourself into getting more comfortable. Okay, but why? There is power in silence. When you can stand in the quietude and just be, it increases your authority. It demonstrates that you're comfortable in yourself, in your physical being, in taking up space, and that you believe that you are enough to fill that moment. When you can cultivate this type of comfort for yourself, you become a person that people listen to. People who use words wisely, intentionally. They bring more power to the things they do say, as opposed to someone who uses a lot of words to fill up the space. In your life, just right now, see if you can bring to mind both someone who talks a lot and someone who uses words sparingly. Can you kind of conjure up somebody in your mind that you have relationship with or reference to? Now, I'm not suggesting that someone who talks a lot doesn't have important things to say. Okay, I'm not suggesting that. But if you had to evaluate which of those two hold more authority and therefore more sway in your estimation, is it the one who is verbose Or is it the one that is succinct and concise? I think most people would say it's succinct and concise. The other powerful thing with silence is that it gives whoever you're talking to time to do one of three things. First, it gives them time to process what you've said or asked. I've talked a lot about this. They need to be able to hear you and then internalize it, relate to it, anchor it into their core knowledge bank, reframe it into their own language, and then craft their response. And that takes a moment. Okay? And I talk a lot about this in other episodes. It's just how neuroscience works. But the other two possibilities are pretty interesting. So the second thing is that it gives whoever you're talking to time to decide if they have more to offer. In voir dire, this is where most attorneys lose valuable information. They step in too quickly before the juror has finished thinking. Think back to how you answered the questions I asked earlier about if you're comfortable in silence. If your potential jurors aren't comfortable in silence, and if you can just wait, they will fill in the gap. They will offer clarification to their response to your question, or amend it, or expound on it. And all of that is potential juror gold for you. You'll get access to richer material and prompts that will set off other juror conversations, but you have to wait or you'll miss it. And the third thing that silence does, with maybe a slight nonverbal shift, a tilt of the head or a raise of the eyebrows, you can let your opposition's witness or your deponent just reckon with what they just said and how caught they are in conflicting information. That silence and that look sometimes heightens the awkwardness factor. And if you're patient, they'll scramble. They'll start oversharing, maybe backpedaling, but it'll all be on the record. Just let them walk into it and try to talk themselves out. Now, this takes some practice, especially if you said earlier that it's not super easy being in silence. Practice pausing instead of filling the space to see what else can fill the space instead of your voice. Because when you stop filling every moment with words, you make space for impact. Until next week, keep fostering your voice. Thanks for pulling up a seat with me today and for being part of the Foster fam. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a review or a comment so I can give you a shout out on a future episode. During the week, you can find me on Instagram at Foster Voice Studio, where I'm dropping little nuggets of vocal technique and leadership wisdom. You can also join my mailing list by visiting fostervoicestudio.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. I'll send a weekly vocal tip every Tuesday directly to your inbox. Until then, keep fostering your voice.